Um, Tonight, you'll see our topic is really about the world has changed and now what? And in the context of so many things that we've started this year with in terms of goal setting, specifically goal setting, the vision that you had for your life, the purpose that you have. What's interesting is within a changing world, the strategies that you've come up with were supposed to be within the context of what you are aware of. But now, it still feels like, especially in the last while, well, we can say in the last 2.5 years, a little bit, is that the world has changed so much, it's not as recognizable. As we begin to move into this hybrid world, guess what? More change, more adjustment. And yes, and Alistaire will really facilitate this conversation with us, specifically in the now what. Alistaire, welcome. And as usual, we look forward to having this conversation with you and with everybody else that's joined us. Over to you.
Thank you, Jacques, and welcome to everybody. So tonight we're talking about exactly as Jacques said, the world has radically changed, and I may even add the word the world has changed forever. Um, and so now what? Specifically from being present in your own life and in your own business, but more so today, how do we lead this? Um, how do we lead this world that has changed? So, right at the beginning of I mean, there are these theories and a lot of people say the world is coming to an end, and it certainly felt like it at some point. And I remember one of the first online sessions I attended is one of the ladies with huge insight said, "Well, the world is not coming to an end," and that was very early in COVID. She says the world actually is not coming to an end, yet it has changed forever. And so, one of the things that we have to, as leaders, is to let go of the assumption. And I call it an assumption because I see it in every aspect of society still being present. The assumption that we can continue as we always did. That theory, that assumption, we need to let go of immediately. And I'm going to say emphatically, you cannot continue as a leader like you've always done. And so a few things needs to change. So one of the things that I was reading is a book by the author, an Indian author, Arundhati. The book The Pandemic is a Portal. Um, talks about the fact that historically pandemic. So by the way, this is not the first he has experienced, but historically pandemics have forced human beings to break with the past and imagine their world anew. So that's nothing new. So what they reckon is this one is no different. And what we have to see it as, it's we see it as a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. So in some way, the pandemic was a gift in that it allowed us to transition from what was to what is now for us fairly a new normal. And somebody even spoke about the fact that we often use the term new normal, but it's almost a new abnormal, and we can safely use that. And choices we that we now make we must keep in mind that it has far reaching consequences, whether we're making good choices or bad choices. So, if you lead a company and you lead a team, the way you handle your people now will have very long term consequences for you and your team, whether it's good or bad. And so, one of the things is um, we cannot ignore, we mustn't minimize the scale of human suffering unleashed by the pandemic. And Shanaz, who's also part of this conversation, did a talk on trauma. And Shanaz, you speak well into this human suffering, and so we mustn't undermine the level or the depth of suffering that has taken place. Another rabbi that I was following described COVID 19, the catastrophe, as the nearest we have come to what is described in the book of Revelation in the Bible. It has taken us very close to what is described there. The pandemic almost captured the biblical sense of shock that many of us felt in the face of what was sudden, what was extreme, and it was swiftly accelerating, and the crisis just snowballed. Um, and the truth is, we've been prior to the pandemic, if we think about it, we've been coasting along for more than half a century, and all at once we were we were faced with our own the fact that we are all fragile and the fact that we are all vulnerable, and the human situation collectively is fragile and vulnerable. And there's as much as we are people of faith, we are people of hope, we are positive people. I bet you none of us can say for absolute certainty that we have the absolute freedom to dream again of the fact that the world is our oyster. The truth is, it is. But the hurt and the trauma is so deep that we find it difficult to dream and think of a future. Last time we spoke about, I deal with some business people who can't even get up in the morning, even though people are waiting for them. So a few things that we realized, big realization: all is not equal, and all is not fair. And if all was equal, then South Africa would have been further down in our recovery compared to other countries. For the first time on Saturday, I saw a full stadium in Cape Town Stadium with Stormers playing Ulster. First time. Everyone else um, already experienced full stadiums with rugby and sports. So we were behind. So that tells us the world is not equal. While some countries had the privilege of fixing this quickly, others like us and even others further away from it, like in Africa and elsewhere, still are struggling with what other people struggled with a year ago in other countries. So the world is not equal. That's the first thing we need to realize. And all is also not fair. And so if we compare, we're going to end up in a different space than we should, because we assume things are fair, and we need to be dealt with fairly. It's amazing how easy you can go in for a vaccine now. I was in Clicks the other day, and a guy walked in, and 5 minutes later he was out. I stood in a queue for 3 hours. Um, and you ask yourself, it's the same amount of people that needs to be vaccinated, even those who are still needing to go for the same for the first vaccine. Same amount of people, but just a year ago and 2 years ago, we had to stand in long queues. Um, and so things are not equal, things are not fair, and that's the way it's going to be. Um, what will the world look like after COVID 19? Just basically, many of the problems we will face in the next decade will simply be more extreme versions of those that we currently facing. And people who study the future, not prophets, these are academics who study the future, a common thing that they say that up till 2025, we will still have extreme disruptions. It doesn't mean COVID, can be results of COVID, but it can be other things. The war between Russia and Ukraine is one of those. So we can expect, at least for the next 3 years, some more extreme disruptions. They also reckon that we will almost only fairly settle to a different sense of normality and balance by the year 2030. So that's the world that we face. I want to give you a few facts. Um, and I know today I'm talking longer, but these are very important statistics. And the statistics that I'm giving you can, uh, the data, these are general statistics, but uh, we can, I even have data with every industry, like in the advertising and marketing. This is how these statistics will look. In the telecommunication, this is how these statistics will look like. So the data is available, but let me give you uh, just a few, uh, the impact of this disruption of this world that, so there's a shift in personal values. What is important to people now versus pre-COVID is people want to more. So some of these things are not new, but it's the emphasis and the degree with which these things are now needed and present is what makes it different. So somebody mustn't write me a post and say, yeah, but these things we've had before. Just think of it on another level. So what's important to people now is making a difference. So ask yourself, how do we lead this? How do I lead this? People want to make a difference. Adaptab- Adaptability, and I struggled with that. Adaptability is important to being, personal well being, general well being, and caring. Those are the values that popped up tops in a survey: making a difference, adaptability, well being, and caring. I want to unpack it a little bit. We also have some good news, some positive changes. Pre-COVID, it's what they call um, limiting values. So pre-COVID, uh, what was emphasized in businesses: performance, control, and hierarchy. After this, there needs to be a people focus, adaptability, and working together. So before COVID and after COVID, what needs to be focused on now is a people focus instead of performance focus. And people want to see this from us as leaders, and they're looking for it. They need it. They need to see that your approach is adaptable and it's relevant to what they experience. And I drive to town CBD every morning. It's amazing how many companies are ask their people to come back to work full week, while others say you can still. I don't know if Kirtley's on here. I can't see my screen at the moment, but Kirtley's company went fully um, distant working, fully, completely. And they were able to do it within less than a few days. And they still continue to do that. So your people are looking for that. Are you adaptable, or are you forcing or reinforcing what was there before? And then people love working together. So there will always be the place where we all come into office, but the fact that we all there all the time for the whole week, there's a lesser need for that. And the good news is cultures are actually healthier. Um, what was emphasized, what they call limiting values, red tape, control, hierarchy pre-COVID. Um, Currently, um, also limiting values, but people have moved from bureaucracy, control, hierarchy to caution, confusion, job insecurity. Those are all limiting values pre COVID, post COVID. So now what sits in people traumatically is this caution, confusion, and insecurity. So I just want to briefly share what's needed to recover and to thrive. And Shanaz, you will be able to speak more deeply into this. Um, so where we are on the right track, and it's difficult to believe this, but this is what the survey points out. Where we are on the right track is many of the top values that we experienced during COVID are also required or requested going forward, like adaptability, agility, teamwork, digital connectivity, balance between home and work, and cross group collaboration. In other words, within a business, if you have different teams, we need to collaborate more so that we appear to be one when we go outside. New directions, along with the positive momentum in organizational cultures, there are new values being requested by people, more employee engagement. People don't want to don't want to feel like they're being used. They're just a cog in a big machine. They want to be engaged and they're willing to give their engagement, but you need to lead them in a way that they will willingly do that. Innovation is a new direction that needs to be focused on, continuous learning, and then open communication. And as I said, these are not new things, but the degree with which these things are requested. So if you want to lead well and you're leading a team and you're leading a business, focus on employee engagement, innovation, continuous learning, and open communication, right? Um, and if you specifically, these are, if you look at different priorities between leadership and employees, um, so between what leaders, I always say what the noise in leaders' heads and what actually is important to people, we need to start listening to people, what's important to them, instead of me saying this is how I lead and this is what I think is important. We need to be open to what people are asking, and even from parent to children. Again, let me emphasize direction and communication is important, agility and innovation, trust and engagement, sustainability and society. These are the things that's important, right? So that's the end of my statistical sharing, and very important for all of us. What do we do with this? So as you listened, what's important, and I'll give you three questions that you can ask, and always think of the one answer to each one of these. The first question is, what must you and I, what must you keep doing because it's been working pre-COVID, during COVID, and post-COVID? You must keep doing that because that's working. What must I keep doing? The second question is, what must I stop doing because it's never worked? Or it worked pre COVID, but it's not going to work now. I need to stop doing that as a leader. And then the last question, what must I start doing? Because I've never tried it before, but I now discovered that this is actually what people need. And so I'm going to start doing that. And that's going to make an exponential difference. Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you, Alistair. To say the least, thought provoking. But we need you to actually, if I can just repeat those three questions again, is what must I keep doing? What must I stop doing? What must I start doing? So, for some of you who have joined, you'll see that you're already on stage with your microphones on. You can flick your microphone if you want to say something rather than wave. Everybody else, if you're not on stage already, can put your hand up. I mean, Alistair it's as short as what it was, is quite rich in terms of just understanding quite a few things. So I don't really want to spend the time going through all of it. But maybe just this, some comments. Alistair, you said we're living in a world where, in some way, shape, or form, we are all fragile and vulnerable. So there are certain degrees to that. And then lastly, the things that we need to be doing, that I sort of cottoned on. So the world, our world, there's the physical world that has been disrupted, and as a consequence, our internal worlds, our systems, our cultures, our ways of doing things have also been disrupted. And so, how do we still innovate? How do we keep ourselves open to continuous learning? And what has happened to our communication style? Is it open, or has something shifted? So, three questions again. What must I keep doing? Something that is universal despite circumstances. Or what must I stop doing because the world has changed? Or
Mm.
because my world has changed, I need to start doing the things that I know will work because my world has been disrupted to such an extent. Okay. Anybody wants to give it a shot? I mean, I can just say, while you're considering this, for me, when I think about thinking innovatively, the limiting values that Alistair shared, the caution, the confusion, the job insecurity, for example, the things that a leader needs to be aware of. I mean, I'm just thinking about innovation as a result. So innovation, to be
Yeah.
innovative, you've got to reduce the way you experience pressure. If you stress, the last thing you're going to do is think creatively about your situation. So there's then comes back to how you're leading yourself. What narrative are you allowing to play through your mind? Anyway, Shanaz, you wanted to say? Open your mic and chat to us.
So while Shanaz is still trying to get a sound, so
Mm-hmm.
Jacques, I'm privy to all this data because I took part in this survey.
Mm-hmm.
It was a global survey, and so I was able to get the data because I took part. So all of this information, the beautiful thing about it, they are they broke it down into different industries, and I've got something like 10, 25 industries here. For each one of those, the data looks different.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
I even have data between that covers just a general population. I have data that is just for people who are employed. I have gender comparisons as to how this looked, generational comparisons, and position comparisons
Mm-hmm.
between your C-suite people, your executives, your managers, your staff. Data, it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, Shanaz, are you able to speak?
Shanaz says she cannot. She says she has unmuted, but we can't seem to hear her. So I don't know if there's some technical thing
Her,
once again.
y- yeah, her comment is she says we can't hear, but however, I need to. She's making that commitment. I need to keep listening to people on the ground and leaders. That's a good.
Mm-hmm.
I attended a webinar. Was it last week with a guy who was talking about different profiling people and how to grow your wealth by knowing how to talk to people because they are different profile. And I personally don't remember all of this. So are you this kind of person? Are you that kind of person? But what Chanel says is it's you can pick up all of that if you're intuitive and you listen to people. You don't have to profile them, just have to listen to them and you
Mm.
respond to their need. So even if you forget all of this, if you listen long enough, that person in front of you will will give you an indication of where they are at now and what their needs are.
Mm. And that fits into the people focus, right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about listening, it's interesting is the different ways of listening. I think we've touched on this before. I'm not too sure if we did, but once again, listening is not just kind of being silent while somebody else is talking. It's like three different types of listening. Yeah, that we, it could be the objective listening. I hear you talking, but I want to counter what you say, or immediately, or the sorry the or the subjective kind of listening, where it is I hear you, but I'm not really listening. I am being present with you, but I'm not absorbing anything really because I want to talk. I'm here to talk, basically. And so, just basically to say, as far as listening is concerned, is the intuitive kind as well. It's where you listen with both your ears and you listen with what your intuition, you read body language. What is the person not saying as much as what they are saying? So, in any event, what I'm just saying is that when we want to listen to others, it's a commitment to be fully present and to really absorb. Because I think what we all want, if we're going to talk about, all right, post COVID, we want a people focus, is how then, according to what I'm building on from Shanaz's comment, is when we listen, effective listening is to be fully present, and everyone wants to be heard. I want to know that I've been listened to. It then makes me feel valuable
Mm.
as a consequence.
Jacques, before we end, I'm very interested in Lishay, if we are able to hear you. So you teaching, you leading a group of learners, children. What is it that you see there? And I mean, it doesn't have to be long, and I know I'm putting you on the spot. But what is it that you see now that uh, in children, seeing that their world, do they know the world has changed? Do they react in a certain way?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the stage. I've noticed a change in the kids as well, especially according to things that their parents tell them and things that they see on television. It's almost immediate, and also affecting them is social media. So I guess social media can also, play a big part in creating a change within people, because we are so closed off to what is actually happening outside. Back in the day, we used to play outside, we used to learn. But now kids see things on TV, they see it on social media, and it's such a vast difference compared to how things used to be in terms of how children receive things and what they say to you. It's amazing how advanced their minds are, how they think. They know things that wouldn't even be able to fathom as a child. They know it. So yeah, I guess that it's whatever's happening in the world is definitely affecting them. And it's sometimes positive, sometimes negative. But I think for this time being, since COVID struck, it's mostly been negative.
Mm.
So it's the only sad thing that I can say about the
Yeah,
pandemic, what the pandemic has caused. Yeah,
it would be interesting to hear how you respond to it when we have more time, maybe another time, Lishay, in that
definitely,
space. Yeah. So
definitely.
here's the thing, and you talk about social media. There are so many. I mean, just open social media, and prior to this whole hype of social media and conspiracy theories, I always had even if I listened to the news, I always said that the news is at least 60 to 70% truth. The rest is a lie. Even if you listen on TV, and it's amazing how slanted it is. Specifically, if you look in America, it depends on what channel you're listening to. So, if you're looking at one particular figure, let's take Trump. One channel, Trump is the best person in the world. The other channel is the arch enemy of the
Mm.
world. So, so children are exposed to this. We as adults, and we sit on social media all the time and we read articles, we watch YouTube. But the truth is, most, if not all of those things are not completely truthful. And we
Mm.
govern and we direct our lives according to these articles and uh, and social media posts, and we believe it and follow it as truth. I mean, so that's the other challenge that we face.
Mm.
How do we nurture truth for those who follow us, for children? And I mean, Lachey, you would say to children, it's not true. And they will say, yeah, but it says so on Facebook.
Yeah,
So it
or my
must be
mommy
true.
said, or my dad
Yeah.
saw, they will always say, but somebody else told them that it's different to what I'm telling them. So you hit the hammer on the nail, so to say.
Yeah. So, Jacques,
Yeah.
thank you. So, before I hand over to
Okay.
Jacques, so we, as leaders, we need to search the truth and not be swayed by theories, and we need to convey the truth. But here's the point: as parents, as leaders, even if you speak the truth would not be accepted because there are more powerful voices speaking to our children, speaking to our teams, etc. I mean, for a pastor, he's preaching in front of his church. Somebody in his congregation is sitting and listening to someone else preaching overseas. And so even what he says is compared to another voice. So yeah, what it says is we really need to up our game in terms of leading. It's not normal anymore. Thank you, Jacques.
Thank you, Alistair, and thank you to everyone who's contributed tonight. Yeah, our world has changed. Social media plays a huge role, and as leaders, we also have to adopt new terminologies in our current environment. I was just thinking as Lishay was talking, was we now can talk about who are the vaxxers, who are the anti-vaxxers, what drives the facts around either or. Most of it is sentiment. And to understand as a leader what is fact and what is sentiment. And I think that that's a point well made. But thank you very much, Alistair, for at least helping us process this. And, we just give little tidbits. So, when the call is done, is to think about these things. But more than anything else, is to make the kinds of decisions that changes how what you've done in the past that was not constructive, but to stay on course. At the end of the day, is I guess the big compass is really your purpose doesn't change just because the world has changed. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic evening. Until we see you again next week.